Morning, and welcome to another one of my book reviews from my ludicrously large to be read pile, which has accumulated over the last few years as I kind of got out of the habit of reading, like I think many of us have, and it just became a matter of, as I say, I went from being a book reader to a book collector, and I'm trying to kind of do something about that because I think it's a positive thing to do, and I'm getting a lot out of it actually. So I'm not, doing this YouTube video to make millions of pounds. I'm doing it for my own interest, my own dedication to trying to be disciplined about kind of making this a reading project part of my life again. I'm very gratified that other people out there watch and hopefully get something out of it. I've had a couple of people say they've read or certainly buy books that I've kind of recommended. And I'm learning as I go. There are some things I'm doing right, some things I'm sure I'm doing wrong. But if you've got patience and find this interesting, I'm sure we can work something out together, right? So feel free to comment, like, subscribe, tell me what I'm doing wrong, in a constructive way, as I'm sure you would. So here we are. It's early December here in Andalucía, and I'm very lucky with the weather today. It's a beautiful day today. I think it's going to be actually quite warm in the sun. What I find here is that inside the casita and everywhere, basically, when the sun goes behind a cloud or there's a rainstorm or foggy, or certainly from sunset on, the temperature plummets really quickly and can get really quite cold. And so Effy and I, the cat, who seems to be more or less recovered from her savage fight, so I'm very, very relieved about that. It was quite a difficult week in some ways. Well, certainly last weekend was very difficult. She was very badly scratched around her eye. The vet said it was a millimetre difference between losing her eye and keeping it. We seem to be out the woods there, kind of thing. She's still a bit sorry for herself and still a bit passive, but I'm so happy that she's feeling better. So anyway, me and her seem to be very fond of the electric under sheet electric blanket that I've got. Right. So okay, to the matter at hand. Right. So I had a good week, I think, in terms of reading. I set myself a little target of 2 books. So I haven't finished this, right? So what I'm doing is I think it's 9 short stories, and they are very, very, very good. And the book, as I said last time, I think it's a lovely, beautifully produced book. What I'm tending to do is kind of do a story a day. Didn't manage a full story yesterday, but I kind of started it. So they're Tales of the Macabre from Daphne du Maurier, and the first story was Don't Look Now, and it was so interesting to see the difference between that and the Nicholas Roeg film, and what Roeg took from it, expanded, did slightly differently, but it's actually very true to the story. And I don't really I'll talk about that more properly in the kind of proper review, okay? But and then the second story was The Birds, which is very different from the movie, and is much, I thought, darker, scarier, atmospheric. So then the next story was a kind of ghost story. And so, horror stories, ghost stories, twisty stories, love it very much. So I want to try and finish this next couple of days, and that'll be my next video, okay? But I'm very, very, very happy to talk about this book, which I bought because of the hype. Not the hype, the very positive reaction to it. And let me double check. Yeah, so they published this in 2017, so 2016, okay. 2016, so I remember kind of, stories about this, headlines about this. I thought, okay, that sounds really interesting, and I kind of bought it, and a couple of years later I bought it for my daughter as well. I don't think she's read it yet, but I'm really going to encourage her to. Some people have asked me to identify very early on my kind of rating of a book so they can choose whether or not to complete the review. And there will be some spoilers, okay? But if you haven't read this yet, if you're a parent, if you're a teenager, if you're in your 20s, if you're 70, I really think you should read this book. I genuinely do. I mean, it's a 10 out of 5 for me. Very, very, very important book. And let's see why. So, and again, I don't want to, some spoilers in the sense of the basics, but I mean, it's a non-fiction book, right? It's a thesis book. And what they say essentially is that we're going to live longer. And they're right, it's only right at the end, interestingly, that they kind of say how that might not work out to everyone's benefit. But the major thrust of the book is, okay, so we have this, and it's so interesting as well, sociologically, historically, politically, how much of our kind of current life that we accepted as the norm, the standard, really is very recent in terms of the working pattern set by the Industrial Revolution, which, yes, is a couple of centuries back, but that's what we think as fixed forever. Before that, working hours very different. The working day was very different. You tended to have your kids with you all the time, which is one of the reasons that why there were so many children in industrial settings in the start of the Industrial Revolution, because that's what you did, right? Your kids were with you. There was no school, right? Only for a privileged few. So you kind of, or very, very slight attempt at schooling. That really does completely change with the Industrial Revolution. And so, and also the kind of, very beneficial social legislation, uh, you know, it was very much expected that old people be looked after by you and your children, and that was the model. And so the kind of achievements of, pensions, they may be being eroded recently. The idea that it was a novelty, right? That older people could not live in poverty and have reasonable, even of just a few years. That's very early 20th century. That's new as well. And so what they're saying is that that's all changing, and we're not really accepting it. Governments aren't accepting it. We as individuals aren't accepting it. But if we treated this correctly, or within intelligence and flexibility, and imagination and courage, then this could be the 100-year life could be a burden, or it could be an amazing gift. And the book is, sociology, economics, politics, like I said. There's lots of data, there's lots of citation, there's lots of good scholarship, there's lots of, interestingly, in my professional life, I kind of occasionally write around HR issues. It's very interesting to see some of those core themes, like core mindset is a cliche now in HR and L&D, but it actually is a proper thesis and proven point kind of thing. So that was all interesting. There's a bit of philosophy in there. Parfit is mentioned, which was quite interesting. Anyway, right. So we have the 3-stage life. Okay, that's what we think is natural, normal. That's what we accept. Education, work, retirement. And we also think what we have to do is we have to build what they call tangible assets. Money in the bank, pension, okay, mortgage, pay off the mortgage, savings, tangible benefits. Fine, sure, right? But what they're saying is that if we are going to live longer, the 3-stage isn't going to work. And if it does persist, it could be quite grim, because you could have a very long middle period, okay, of working, and that could be very exhausting and boring and unchallenging, and perhaps not even that remunerative for certain sectors of society. And that end phase, the retirement, living a nice holiday at the end of your life, that could be truncated for a lot of people because the middle part might have to go on. They talk very frankly about how financially illiterate many of us are, and how we don't really think enough about this. And they talk about how if you are born, if you've been born in the 70s or 80s or later, then you're going to be having to think about a longer period of retirement, which means a much higher rates of savings to achieve. Well, they think most people would want to aim for a 50% of final salary income. They said, we'll achieve that. This guy here, born in 1945, he only had to save, I'll say 3%. This person born here in the late 60s, 15%. This person here, 27%. Okay, so, and with starting a family and mortgages and having a life and all those things, that's just not realistic. So The challenge to the reader is, okay, well, let's rethink this then. What about a multi-stage life? And what about talking about intangible assets? I'll do those both very briefly. A multi-stage life is, okay, what about if there are periods of time when you change career, not change career like change jobs, change career, went to do something different, travel around South America, set up your own consultancy, set up a company, open a coffee shop, okay? And then maybe you go back into corporate life, or maybe you never do, but then you form some other way of growing that business and become more of an entrepreneur. Okay, that's that's the stages of life that you might have, which might be education, work, another period of education. It might be a different career, might be living in a different country, might be doing this, might be doing that. That's very interesting. And so, why does that last period, the third stage, have to be you not being economically active, you not being stimulated? Some people want that. But what about if you wanted to do part-time? What if you wanted to go back to uni? What if you wanted to do start up a business? What if you wanted to join a company? Interesting, right? Then they talk about intangible assets. And if you think about, I'm sure for most people, what that means, sorry, I'll clarify this. So that means your relationships. And that doesn't necessarily just mean your romantic, familial, sexual partnership relationship, life partnership, romantic relationships. It means your friends and the networks of the people and the kind of people that you stay friends with forever, and the people that kind of come in and out of your life, but also provide great value. That's interesting. And they took, obviously, what I'm trying to say a second ago is for most people, especially me, you're going to go to the kind of marriage, divorce, family kind of aspect of that. And what they say is, well, you might need to have a different approach to marriage partnerships. It might be that you might have to flip now and again. You say, right, you're going to look after the kids now for a period of time while I support you, or can you support me while I develop my pottery business? And one would like to think that's what part of modern marriage is, but maybe it isn't. And also, the financial consequences of divorce have been quite impactful, and can be quite impactful. Let's say no more than that. So, okay, in this new model, do we do something about that? And challenging yourself in terms of other intangible assets, your health, your fitness, which is something I'm concentrating on at the moment. But do we? Is that something you do for your whole life? Maybe you should. Is that something that we should be really encouraging our children to think about as a forever thing? Again, that's interesting. And what they say at the end is that governments and corporations and business aren't really thinking about this yet, not really set up for this. And we have to, there's probably, in the same way that governments, in response to labour, unions and working class pressure, right, responded by introducing what we used to call the welfare state. Do we still have such a thing, right? And that was a huge achievement, and that really worked for a long time. Well, maybe let's not get rid of that, but maybe we need to flex that. Maybe we need to change that. Maybe different things need to happen. Maybe we have to do a different aspect about. They talk about lifetime allowances, and they talk about a lifetime's perspective on your tax and your pension. Very interesting. That hasn't happened yet. Corporations, again, back to my kind of HR writing. Some of them that talk about this, don't know yet, really, kind of thing. And they talk about, we're going to have a different. We might need both a different attitude towards older workers, but also younger workers. Fascinating stuff. Okay, but what I really take from this book, and I'm reading it at a very interesting, useful time in my life to be reading such a thing, is that, well, maybe I'm on a multi-stage life. Maybe I'll live to 100. What would I do? How would I fund it? What would give me satisfaction? What would give me joy? What is it I really want to do? I'm trying to challenge myself and do positive things around my health and my fitness and my weight. And I'm trying to get into learning my bass and my music. I'm doing this reading thing. Should I be doing other things? Spanish has not really started yet. That really needs to happen. Are there other things I should be doing or thinking about doing, or new skills I could be learning? Or my co-parent is thinking about going back to university to reskill, upskill. That's fascinating. I've gone back to university in my life, but only really for fun, essentially. You know, think should I be looking at that kind of thing? And as you read this kind of thing, you have to think about, well, my pension, really, I've had to draw that down, which is very, very unfortunate. So as you go on, okay, well, right, if I'm going to live longer, would I have time to rebuild that up? Do I have a time to do alternative, additional sources of income? Are there ways that I could be thinking about that creative and interesting? I'm not going to buy crypto, but you know what I mean, though. So that's interesting. What does it mean for my child and our children, and what I think we should be giving them this book? And I think what really positive thing I took away from this book, just among many other things, is maybe we need to be, not so strict about bearing down on our kids and saying, you need it all sorted out. Maybe that's completely the wrong idea. Maybe if the education, they call it explorer phase, maybe we really have to be relaxed about that, and maybe we have to accept they need to try 2-3 things and accept, they might fail, or they might start something and come back to it, or if it really is going to be that longer period of time, then encourage creativity, encourage flexibility, encourage experimentation, with all that means. Maybe they need a very different attitude towards relationships and love. I know people, I'm privileged to know people who are still with their partners they met when they were 17, 18, 19. That's incredible. It's very rare. I wish that had happened to me. It didn't happen to me. What should I be thinking about that in terms of my child, and what I should be trying to encouraging her to do or think about or aspire to? Very interesting. I still believe in love. I still believe in passion. I still believe in connection. I'd like to think that could still happen to me in my next stages. Okay, you may laugh. You're allowed to. Man can dream. Gillian Anderson level. Not settling for anything not as smart or sexy as that. Right. So, but whatever. Right. Brilliant book. Really interesting. Very much worth reading. And I think it's a sort of book that I will absolutely keep, and I will go back to, and I will use this as an inspiration, as a way to kind of make me think about things, check some assumptions, all that kind of good stuff. I really, really, really think this could be an excellent Christmas present for yourself and for the people you love, genuinely. Okay, right. So I'm going to go back and do all the things I've got to do today, which include drawing the kitten and cooking some healthy food and catching up with celebrity and all those fun things. And tomorrow's probably going to be a bit of a work day, but I'd like to press on with Daphne du Maurier and have a video for you guys in a couple of days' time. A little bit disappointing on the weight loss front. My blood sugar diet, I put on a tiny bit. I think there are reasons for that, and there's some lessons learned. It was a 2 bottle of wine week. But then could that be the only factor? I'm obviously not being, perhaps portion sizes, lots of things being learned. But I mean, I'm going to do a big push for Thursday, which will be the kind of end of this phase, because I'm flying back to England. I'm going to eat lots of mince pies and then come back, and I'll probably go back on the diet, probably give myself 2 weeks off, then back on and think about some new things to kind of add to it. And, one carries on. So, guys, thank you. Really, really do think about the 100-Year Life book. Fantastic book, very interesting, very rewarding, very worthwhile. And hope you're doing well with your own TBRPs. Like and subscribe if you want to. And look forward to dialoguing with you all in real life about these issues. Okay, so I'm going to try my little remote control here, see if this turns off the camera. If not, you'll have to see me looking awkwardly, turning over, trying to turn it off. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.